ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ Women Out There the show ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ different personalities inspiring personalities ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਹਲੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਜੁੜ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ Instagram profile ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ she is presence based coach anti-racism consultant and educator, mindfulness and meditation, creator of Bespoke workshops and a speaker. But मैं इन्हां नूं बुलाना चाहूँगी in social media influencer. Please check out Ravideep Kaur's Instagram profile ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਥੇ ਜੁੜ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
So ਭੈਣ ਜੀ I have introduced you and your Instagram profile says so many things.
Yes.
Which one of them you like to be known as most or which one of them you're known as most in generally out there?
Probably at the moment I'm doing a lot of anti-racism work.
Yep.
It's very close to my heart.
Yeah.
I'm a mother and I want to make a difference to the world that my children are living in.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest about that.
A mother is automatically an influencer.
Yes.
But then it takes a certain extra few steps to be social media influencer.
Yes.
How did that happen, Penji?
It was quite, I don't know, it was quite a natural progression.
Yeah.
I just didn't see myself represented in social media. I am a woman of colour, but I'm also a Sikh who is raising 3 children.
Yeah.
And I want other people to see this because our struggles and our happiness maybe looks a little bit different from other white mothers out there who are influencing.
Yes, definitely. And let's talk about Penji. There's so much. Your profile, Instagram, you know, we get inspired with your posts about self-care for women, you know, so many posts about women of color. Right now we were talking about immigrant women who came, you know, back from India. How do they feel about? There's so much to learn from you.
Oh,
How did you start building up in this man? Was it from your teenage years? When did you start realizing that, hello, I've got a word to say? So can we have a little bit background? Let's go back into your childhood.
Okay. Seems so long ago now. I come from a Sikh family and I am one of 3 girls.
Right.
And I also have a brother. I have always been really, really outspoken, like my mum and dad, they can vouch for this. I've always just been really, really outspoken and opinionated and questioning everything. Mm-hmm. So I was that annoying child that would be like, well, why? Well, why? Why do we need to do this? And this curiosity has just never left me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I suppose, slowly built up from that. Mm-hmm. And I went and studied law at university. And I worked in that field for many years when I moved up to Scotland. And I just saw loads of flaws in the system and I felt like my voice was not represented and I felt as though I had to dilute myself to fit in the corporate world, in my personal life. And I just got to a point where I became completely fed up with it. Certain things happened. I became a mother. I moved up to Scotland. I had to look after myself. And if I'm honest, I just wanted to represent 100% of who I am right now rather than 50 or 60%.
Yeah.
And the more I started talking and the more I started to be honest about my experiences and how I was really feeling, the more people started to resonate with my story.
Yeah.
Other women of colour started to come forward and be like, well, that thing you're talking about,
yeah,
I feel it too. Thank you for saying that. So whatever I'm doing, I am championing for other people of colour, other women of colour to own their voice. Because if we don't do it now, the same thing happens to the next generation and the next generation. And I don't want my children to grow up in a world where they are representing 50, 60% of themselves. I want them to be 100% who they are and be accepted for who they are.
That's beautiful, Penji.
Thank you.
And the thing you said about questioning,
Yes.
You know, do you think that in households today, even today in 2019, you know, so many years later from the time when you were a child, till even today there are children who can't ask their question, the parents their question why, what, and you know, how did this happen? Do you think that we might have progressed infrastructure-wise? Maybe development is only in the fashion, in the you know, in other sectors, but not here mentally of societal level.
Yes.
So do you think that that questioning thing that you were saying about? So it might be acceptable that those days were different, but our days really have they really changed today?
Unfortunately, when we're honest,
Yeah.
I think in certain households, and I think it's dependent on the dynamic within the family and the makeup of that particular family. But I'd say as a community, as a society, no, we haven't. Yes, I would say mental health issues are now coming to the forefront, but I still don't think it's enough, especially in our communities. And then when we look into our communities like your local Gurdwara, I think we have got to get better at having these conversations that are really, really honest, without judgment. And I think that's the key, that you can ask the questions without being judged. Because if my experience shows, if you're going to ask a question, it is very likely that there is somebody else in that crowd that is also feeling that, but doesn't have the confidence or isn't able to articulate their feelings as well.
Yeah.
And I think it isn't something, I don't think it's something you can draw a line under and be like, we're talking about this subject matter, so that's fine. We are talking about intergenerational things, for example, things that are different dependent on what generation you are from. And we have got to get better at just listening to people.
Yeah. Definitely.
We're not all the same, although we have similar experiences. We are not all the same, and we don't tick the same way either.
And the way you were saying, Penji, that, you know, something always keeps us from being 100%. And we, just because we want to fit in a crowd,
Yes.
the peer group around, we always remain 60 or 70, and we never actually realize our true potential.
Yes.
And that is happening a lot to the girls these days. You know, I used to see that in my university, that you know, you have to look a certain way, you have to believe in certain things, and that's how you can be a part of the girls group. Do you think that this is somehow a very negative practice, because this can make girls have a lower confidence ahead in future if they have not got that already?
I think it's a really interesting point, because social media can be so great. You know, it's connected us, for example, and it's connected me with a lot of like-minded women.
Yeah.
However, I think, especially for the youth and the younger generation, there is a lot of comparison that you must do this, this and this to be accepted. And I think we can't get away from that. But I think if you are dealing with the spiritual and mental things where it builds up your own self-belief in who you are, that is the #1 priority. And this isn't, again, something that you can tick a box when you are 15 or 16 years old. This continues throughout your life, every stage, that you must continue to nurture that spirituality within yourself, to know who you really are. And this changes, it evolves. I'm not the same person I was 2 days ago, let alone like 2 years ago. So I think it's just being really conscious and not getting caught up in the rat race of, I must achieve this to be accepted, or then I must achieve this. And in our community, again, there are certain things that we feel we need to achieve before we're accepted. And it just isn't true. We are born unique, and we have to flourish in that way and not feel like we need to reach this certain stage before we accept ourselves. People are never going to accept you, but if you continue to nurture that within yourself, that is the only way that you can stay authentic and genuine. That's what I believe, and something that I have learned through the years as well. You know, I've not just come up here and been like, oh, I accept myself 100%. But I know that I am learning, and every day is a learning day. And I know that if I allow myself to accept myself, then I can, you know. And there's going to be good days and bad days with that.
That's true. And speaking of social media and acceptance, even you have a social media account, you know,
Yes.
you're influencer there. That's how we found out about you. That's become your identity. But do you think that even you seek approval sometimes on your social media, that the people who are following you, people who are liking the post, or they're commenting, so somebody who might not agree with what you're saying, or maybe has a different opinion, and you're probably trying to tell him that, okay, to each his own, but then somehow it you know, there is inside you that you want people's approval?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Approval comes in many ways. The more I use my voice for truth, the more I stop caring, to be honest. I'm not going to pretend that follows and likes don't mean anything, because the more bigger platform you have, the more you get heard.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. But I don't believe that just because you're shouting the loudest means that you're speaking the most value either. And I, for one, like to look for accounts with maybe smaller followings to learn from them. And I am not saying that I am an expert in any of these fields, because again, I am learning. But if you let me show you and guide you, I can show you a different way, my way.
Yeah.
I'm becoming less and less, I suppose, placing less value on follows and likes. It's a virtual world, and yes, it's got a lot of influence, and yes, it's the way that the world is going, but it's also not real. And I like to go back to the real things. I'll put a post up, it doesn't mean that somebody who's seeing my post knows who I am. I like to go back and do something that makes me connect with something real. I know what's real, I know who I am. And I think if you just get so obsessed with nurturing that one part of you, which is your social media, and growing it, and I do believe you do need to put time and effort into it, because I spend time on captions and content. It does take me time, but I am starting to realise that that is not only who I am. I am all these other things. And again, that comes down to this, I'd see it as like a pie chart. And that is one sector of my life. And all the other bits, when they put nicely together, just make up the fullness, the 100% of who you are.
That's true. And this is what the young generation fails to see, that what they're looking on social media, you know, what they see is just a part of somebody, and that they are not this. And this is what they fail to see, fail to recognize, and they think that it's just all that they do, and I even want my life to be like this. And I think somehow what is portrayed in front of you fails you in many ways, and that can happen to anyone, Penji.
Yes.
Also, when you were speaking about approval, acceptance, it just came to my mind that women in general, from raising kids to nurturing the whole family, taking care of everyone, and then how much do they think about themselves? How much do they expect that somebody does that for us as well? They don't have zero expectation. And then that is also all about the family acceptance. So
I think it's difficult again, because we have not, I put something out yesterday just about wellness for women of colour, and especially South Asian women. We haven't been shown this path, that it's okay for you to take time out for yourself without feeling guilty, because we saw like our mums and grands and aunts working so hard with different struggles, never taking time out. But we are not them and they are not us. And with science and with more research, we are realising that wellness isn't just going to the gym, for example, for half an hour. It is more than that, and we have to start placing more value on it. And just as and I think monetary value as well, so just as we save up to buy that new handbag or whatever, we need to save up to go and do something that makes you feel good just for yourself, that doesn't show anybody, look what I've done. This is just your internal wellness. And that is stuff that, and it doesn't always cost money, but I think not feeling guilty for spending money on yourself that isn't for anybody else but for you.
Yeah.
Because white women have been doing it for decades. They go for massages and manicures and retreats. And why should we not?
Of course.
Why should we not do that? And you know, when you look, it is scientifically proven that if you take care of yourself, you are able to take care of other people around you. And not everybody's got the luxury to do that. But even things like going for a walk in nature, just to connect you back to something that's real, that you're not always tapping on your phone or on your laptop, to connect you back into nature and motherland and the earth, because that's where we came from, to be honest.
But so certain things, you know, they're unconsciously passed on from generation to generation. You know, they might not be teaching you that you must not relax yourself. You must first take care of it. They might not be saying this. These are just unsaid things that, you know, people, especially, you know, women, when they get, young girls, when they get married, they automatically just get adjusted and they don't have any reference point to where to start, and they think of their own mother, oh, how does she do it? And then they just start doing it. So, unconscious imprinting, Penji, this is also because you do mindfulness. And it comes within that think of all the things that you have imbibed in your life unconsciously and ask yourself, is it right or is it wrong? So do you count this in mindfulness when you speak about it, when you explain about this?
So I don't know if the viewers know much about mindfulness, but it is just basically staying present to what is happening. So for example, I am having this conversation with you, we are in this moment, it is never coming back again, but it's to be present in that moment and not to be thinking, oh, what else have I got to do? Or, you know, and that mindful, that chatter that goes on in your head is to try and put a rest to it, because we have so many things to think about. But I think if you can just stay present, even if it's like once a day in a task that you're doing, it can be, it's been life-changing for me to just not always jump ahead or think backwards, but just to think, today, in this moment, it's okay. And that might be enough for that day. And I completely agree with the unconscious conditioning, the lessons that we've been taught that haven't been spoken to us. We've maybe not even seen them, but we feel them within our body and we take them, and we just have to be, again, if we're conscious to what is going on and we are questioning and being curious, then that is the way you can move forward. It is the way you can accept your life for what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. It just, sometimes it just is.
And in this journey of realizing so many things and getting yourself ready to present them to the world as well, and then getting a platform like social media, that choosing this is where I'm gonna put out my thoughts and start making difference in people's life, you know, all throughout this, because these are small decisions, but now look what your small decision of joining just Instagram has brought you to so many followers. So all throughout this, was there only one key person, or who were the people who were around you, and you know, you could just casually mention and seek their support? And did you speak anything about any, you know, all of this to anyone? I'm really lucky. I've got a really close family. My husband's always my #1 fan. My sisters, my brother. You know, we're close enough to that I can say to them, this is what's really going on for me. And although it was a very conscious thought to obviously log into and set up this page and things, I do feel that there has been a calling for this type of work within me. I haven't sat down and thought, right, I want to do this, that and the other. It is just, as I've evolved as a person, as certain things have happened, I feel like I've had a calling to do certain things. And when I write, it feels cathartic. It feels like I just want to release my feelings and not think much about them afterwards, to be honest. Just, this is what I'm feeling. If you connect, then great. If you don't, well, that's fine as well, you know. But yeah, family support, it's real. And it's just
being able to be honest about where you're going. And there are frustrations with social media as well. It's not all, yeah, I just log off and that's fine. There are things there, but I think it's finding ways to manage it. And again, wellness and looking after yourself is really, really important, especially when you're dealing with difficult topics that can bring up certain things, not just for you, but some of your followers as well. So other women of colour or other South Asian women that are coming and messaging me and stuff, I am becoming a lot better at knowing whether to open the message, for example. Is this a good time for me to open the message? If I'm bombarded with other work, I need space and time. So I'm practicing my own thing, so I won't open the message straight away. I'll make sure that I've got the space in my head to be present with that message, because I don't know what I'm going to be opening up to, rather than opening it and feeling bombarded with my own emotions.
That's true. And just as we were speaking before the interview about where you live, Dundee.
Yes.
You know, having that because I can relate to that. And I think so many of our, the young girls also watching, listening from their own mothers when they came from India, or maybe if their grannies there, when they came from India, and then having that moment, even though you were born here, you could speak English and you could understand the culture. There were so many aunties out there who came from India, knowing not a single word of the language they're speaking, being completely alone, not having any community around, no gurdwara to go to, but then still raising kids in that culture. Maybe if a person, living in this modern age like you, will speak of feeling the same thing so many years later, even though your situations were quite different, the young girls can understand what their grannies must have gone through. So how was it when although we have spoken about it for our viewers, how was it moving to Scotland? And why was it like that? Precisely the fact that our community did not, there was not much presence of the Sikh community or any sisterhood, as we were speaking about. So
it was a big culture shock. We initially moved up to Aberdeen, which is very northeast. Many people would never have been there. Probably quite naively, I was like, yeah, let's go, it'll be fine. So I've always been that kind of person.
What age was there?
I was 26.
Oh.
Yeah. So I thought I was old enough and mature enough, but looking back now, no way, not at all. But again, you learn and you evolve, and I found myself struggling on so many levels, more because I couldn't lie about how I was feeling, even when I was in corporate settings. And it's a different culture there, because there isn't a presence of any women of colour generally. And I felt like I was representing a whole community on my own. And
even they were not very used to having people of colour there.
Yeah, no, they weren't. And I think I've learned a lot from that. Initially, it was the shock of how that made me feel as a person. But throughout the years, I've started to realise that, this isn't the blame of anybody. It's a situation that we're put in. And I believe I was put in that situation for a reason. So I feel I have learnt from that. But the struggle was there to feel part of something, to feel part of a community. And that isn't just being Asian or Sikh. It was more just a new person coming into the area, having no friends or no family network or support. I felt very alone. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, I showed levels of resilience that I didn't realise that were within me. But again, that I put that down to my spiritual strength and strength that kind of my parents have invested inside of me.
Isn't that being a woman about that we achieve so much on a daily routine basis, but then we are modest and we just chuck it down. That's so what, we do it and we don't give ourselves enough credit. So I think that's so typical of a South Asian woman too.
Definitely.
Isn't that? So, there's so many girls who are watching this interview, but then they should realize that while you are doing something, even if it is about getting up, going to college, you know, give yourself credit that you're having an education, that you are that generation of the family that is privileged to go out and get yourself an education, because a few generations back, the women of your family could not do it. So we should be giving ourselves credit for a lot of things, and that is quite a boost for our mental health. Penji, we will continue this talk with you after a short break. Time ho gaya ek short break ਲੈਣ ਦਾ, but Ravideep Penji ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ. Break ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਥੋੜੇ interesting aspects of life from her social media page. So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਜਾਇਓ, ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ Sikh channel Women Out There. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਫਤਿਹ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ Women Out There show ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ Ravideep Kaur Penji. You can go search her on Instagram with her username Ravideep Kaur_, and ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ post. Yeah, here you go, and ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ different stories ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ. Penji, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying your time at Sikh channel.
It just feels like a conversation.
Yes, it does. And then, you know, to have a channel from where your community can come forward and speak about things, you know, because I know they're mainstream media as well, which is like popular countrywide, but then to have the similar kind of platform, even for a smaller group, where you can easily go and speak about something and, you know, make a difference to the target audience, you know, that audience that you're really targeting, it makes a real kind of difference. What do you think about it, Penji?
Yeah, I'd hope so. I just, again, it's just my conscious thoughts that are flowing, and I'm realising more and more, the more I speak honestly, the more people are resonating with what I'm saying. And I think often we pretend that these things aren't happening to us because we don't want to feel judged, we don't want to feel like we're weak or inferior. You know, there's a lot of pressures, especially for women in the, you know, in this country, and I think sometimes we pretend. And if I can make a difference just to make somebody look at me and be like, well, these things have happened to her and she's stronger and being able to kind of work her way through it. It just gives me more motivation to continue to speak my truth.
Definitely, because looking at the picture of your 3 beautiful kids, if we can have that picture on here, Penji, the 3 beautiful, please introduce us.
So yes, these are my boys, my world, my life. I'd say, yeah, just I moved into a different category when I became a mother. I think a lot of women could probably resonate with that. Something that we're not really taught that either. It's like, get married and have children, and then you have children and you're like, whoa, what's happened here? Your whole identity shifts, and you have to find, you know, how I was talking about evolving in the first part, you have to find that other part of you now, and that nobody's taught you. It just kind of grows and develops. So my children are, I've got twin boys who are Sarup and Nihal Singh. And then I've got my youngest, who is 5, with the green patka there, Udham Singh. All different personalities, all chatty and curious. So this thing that I talk about where I'm, oh, become curious, do this, do that. Yeah, they're very much that. They're very curious.
So what kind of mother you are, Penji, if I may ask that?
Firm and fair. I think children do need boundaries, but I also learn, it's a two-way learning thing, so I don't feel, it's the same ethos with my work. Although I may be saying that this is what I know, I am also always open to another person's opinion. Whether I agree with that or not is different, but I'm willing to have an engagement and not shut down a conversation. I think that's really important. And it will be the same with my children. Although I feel like I may know better, there's certain situations that actually they are teaching me. And I think as adults, as parents, we need to take the messages that our children are telling us, because it's a long time since we were children, and you can sometimes forget what it was like. So I always try and look at it from their perspective as well. And maybe even if it's not at the time, I will reflect back and try and engage the conversation again. I just want it to be an open and honest relationship that this is how you feel and this is why, and this is how I feel and this is why. And I think we can learn a lot by just having open conversation, something that maybe wasn't so prevalent back in our day.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be, just to be open and honest and show them what I think, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be the right thing.
And how are the boys taking the growing apart in Scotland, Penji? You know, if a person, you know, grown-up person like us can feel alone, you know, can have a certain struggles, then how are the children coping over there?
They don't know any different, I suppose, because they were born there.
Yeah.
So for them, Scotland is home. And it's been very, it's been very welcoming. They've got Scottish accents and they speak in Scottish. They say Scottish words that I don't understand what they're saying. Yeah. So I think they feel very Scottish as well. But I think their Sikh identity, which is part of who they are, is very strong as well. And that's something that's being nurtured internally. And again, that is something that they are taking personally, and it is their journey. Us as a collective, as a family, but it's the way that we live our lives. There has been some difficulties, and I don't think I'm the only one around the country. I think a lot of our children are having issues with keeping their guess, representing, with a batka and a turban.
Did the boys have that issue in school?
So yes, we had some issues at primary school, and this was a couple of years back. And yeah, it escalated, but more because I wasn't willing to take it lying down. I wanted to push forward that if this is happening, why is it happening? Let's educate, let's not sit in ignorance. And I think we just need to be really honest about the education system. The way that it's set up was never made for people like us. It was never, the things that we get taught were never made for us. And I think we need to start breaking down some barriers.
Yeah.
And we have to do that personally. Yeah. So for me personally, again, when I talk about a higher calling, certain things happened with my children and I saw a gap and was like, if it's not going to be me, who else? Who am I waiting for?
Yeah.
So I am doing anti-racism education, selling a course online, engaging with white women and leaders and communities to just have open and honest conversations about different races and what that means to us.
If you can mention the website, Penji, briefly, then people can
Yeah, at the moment it is just fully through my Instagram page.
Yeah, okay.
So it is just Ravideep Kaur. I'm just keeping it quite simple.
Yeah.
And that course will be releasing this month in November. Something that I've worked really hard on, and I want to make it really clear that I'm not here just to make a quick buck. It's more than that. I really want to make change. I want people to get comfortable with having these conversations. Just as women of colour are getting together and owning their voices, we need to bring other people into the conversation. And I see slow but sure change.
That's true. That's true. So people do catch up with their Penji's Instagram page, and there's some interesting stuff that's going to be up there in the month of November. And Penji, speaking of that, I just saw your post yesterday about how you related Grenfell Tower incident and how we have to be really honest about our conversations, with our colour, the race, if you can talk in relation to that post, if we can have an extended talk about what you actually wanted to communicate in that particular video, in that post.
Yeah, I think just as a community getting better at recognising that the system that we're working in is actually against us in a lot of ways, and things that are happening nationally and worldwide aren't a coincidence. And when we look back at our history and colonisation, the present day is very much relevant. It's completely relevant to what is happening now. And I would encourage everybody to go and look at what their history is and what it means. And things start to become a little bit clearer. And this isn't to take away from anybody that you don't know this and you don't know that, because, you know, we can't know everything.
Yes.
But again, that level of curiosity, you know, when you look around your office, for example, who is sitting in leadership positions? Is this about you're not good enough, or you're not intelligent enough, or you don't have enough training? Or is there something more going on? Who is, you know, who has got influence and who has got power, and wealth as well? It's all interconnected and related. Yeah. And I think, especially as a Sikh community, we are very, you know, we're law-abiding, we kind of stay quiet, we do our jobs, and we're not challenging the status quo of what is going on. And I know, just by the small drop of what I'm talking about, that there are other families struggling with, you know, direct racism when it comes to their children or themselves. And this isn't just about individuals, this is about us kind of getting better at holding our power and not causing arguments or anything like that and causing disturbances. But I just think being honest about what is really going on, and just because you're okay, that it doesn't matter. There's other people that if you can talk for one person, again, it might affect somebody else in a different situation.
Keeping the identities confidential, Penji, do you have any case coming to your mind, any incident with somebody, you know, when they faced racism and they came up to you and they told you a story, and that is something which people should be knowing about, which is heroic?
I think it's just common practice. I think with Brexit and everything that's going on in the UK, the statistics show you that there's a lot of kind of overt, so direct racism that we can all recognise. We know what direct racism is. But more than that, it is the underground, covert, subtle,
which people
systematic.
might not realise.
No,
you know, when
systematic.
it happens, they don't recognise that.
They don't recognise it. And I think even the conversations with Grenfell, the reason why I felt it really necessary to speak about it is because nobody is speaking about it. Just because, you know, you were not personally affected by Grenfell, that could have been any of us or our families. And we talk about community and we talk about seva. But again, it isn't enough just to be going on a Sunday to Gurdwara and doing a bit of seva there. This, when you strip down what that means to us as a community, it is selfless service. And I do see it happening, you know, longer distribution for like homeless people and things like that. And it's taking it down to ground level. And I think, don't sit in your privilege just because you're okay. And we say to white people, you've got white privilege. Or we also have privilege of education. We also have privilege of a voice where we can stand up and stick up for someone, not because they mean something to someone, not because it's personally affected you, but because it is the better thing to do for the wider community, for our children, and for the coming generations. If you see something that doesn't feel right, don't just sit with it. If you can, try and find a solution or have a conversation with that person. If you are in school setting or corporate setting or any of those things, challenge it or start to get curious yourself. This thing happened again. Is it coincidence or is this systematic racism?
That's true, Benji. If I can have some more pictures, you know, before we run out of time, let's have this one, which I was just mentioning. I have not chosen because I love the building, but because what you had written for the post, Benji, about the sunshine. And let's read it in your voice.
When I catch the sun shining its beauty, that's when I feel those rays. I feel the rays all over my body, like flowers that are blossoming right in front of you on a hot summer's day. The rays are especially needed on those darker days, as the roots must continue to spread, flourish and take up their space. And on those days that you cannot find the sunlight, you must yourself become those rays of light.
Oh, Are you a poet too?
So I do a bit of poetry, yes.
Yes, and
I
you're telling us now after like most of the show. You must write that as well in your bio there.
Yes, I should, yes, yeah.
But how did poetry, because you had so much to say, it just flew out of you?
Basically, yeah. It's partly that. I've always written. And I just find it a good release to write the words, and they kind of just flow out of me. But also, again, when we look back to Sikh scripture, it's throughout our Bani. So it's part of who I am. So we're all poets, really.
That's true.
When we read Bani and Bhat and stuff, we do Simran and Shabd. You know, it's poetic language, and I feel like, again, it is just part of who I am, so I can't separate those two things. So sometimes when I talk and when I write, it's just in poetic form.
But do you think, Penji, that there have been categories made that you're this kind of Sikh or you're that kind of Sikh, and have you ever faced it?
Yes, definitely. Something we've spoken about before, and I feel really honoured to have a platform like this where we are showcasing, you know, Sikhs where they are on their own personal journey, and not to judge people.
Sikh channel is, you know, like, it's Sikh channel. So if we have a media, it's not only for a particular kind of people who are following a, a narrow version of Sikhi, which have their own definition for it. It's for those different kinds of Sikhs that have that are following Sikhi and representing us where nobody else is, in their own unique way. You're up there in Dundee, leading a life, raising 3 Sikh boys, even if they faced racism at school, where people don't understand Patka and Juda and the significance of case in our religion. And you are practicing Sikhi, you're fighting for your kids to have Patka. So you are the Sikh which nobody else is.
Yeah, that's very well put. I think it's just, again, our community being better at taking people for where they are in their journey. I feel like it's a very spiritual journey that is personal. And I don't want to take away from anybody of where they are in their journey. But then that respect should be two-way as well. A judgment shouldn't come either way, you know. And if you are living within those values, and, I am trying every day to be better. Again, not just for myself, not just for my family, not just for my children, but for the benefit of a wider collective, of a wider community, of the Sangat. And I do believe I've been put in certain places and have dealt with certain things to be right here in this moment. I don't feel like anything we achieve or do is completely coincidental.
That's true, Penji. And this right now on the screen we have another post of you. If we can also have a look at the picture, and then we'll move towards the caption. But there's so many of them. There's so many of them. This is with your kids, and you're talking about them. I always love watching posts with your kids in it. Of course, I'm your fan, but then I'm a bigger fan of your kids.
Oh, I know. Most people are.
I know, especially Udam, the youngest one. So cute. And the next one. This is also with I think this is Udam in your lap here. The younger one. Look at that smile. Yes, and if you can have a look at the caption. Is be present about the mindfulness, as you were speaking before. Life is happening in the now, right now, in fact. And how do you think that, how can we teach this to the little minds for whom it might be too much to grasp and they might not understand, but unconsciously we have to teach them to be, what is that trick, Penji?
There's no trick, I suppose. I think it's just changing your own mindset, because then it just becomes really natural. So basic things that I use with my children. So it's not like I say one thing and do another. It's part of who I am. So, for example, on our school journey, we do this thing where we try and find something. So we obviously do the same journey every day, and we're lucky enough now to be able to walk to school. So, and you can imagine how much you are experiencing just in that 10-minute walk. So we try and capture something that we haven't seen the day before. Just to be present in that walk, to feel the earth beneath you. And it's not that complicated. So you notice a cloud in the sky that wasn't there yesterday. And it is just to make it clear to them that today is today.
Yeah.
And it's not coming back again.
Right.
And just to be present for this and not to carry those worries from yesterday and not to think about tomorrow, because today is today.
Yeah.
And they love doing it because it's always like, oh, who can find the first thing? And it could be a leaf that you've seen. There's this building actually that we walk by every day, and it's all green. The leaves are on it. Obviously autumn came, changed colours, and now all the leaves are away.
Yeah.
And they are noticing these things. It's not me saying, oh, look at this, look at that. It is them, and that is them just being present in the moment that, look, I am noticing this, and that's all it is, noticing and observing.
That's true. And here we have all the 3 boys in the classroom. So what's the story happening here?
That was just, education. That's in their Cubs group that they used to go to. And it was them standing up in the community that wasn't particularly nice to them, and we had some issues. But again, we stood strong and still wanted to educate and represent that this is what we're about. And it, again, showing a strength within you and a resilience that you can overcome these things when you come together.
And how are they dealing it among themselves that, you know, no matter what, even it's us 3 who look same and we are here for each other. Have they got that kind of brotherhood thing and family thing at a very early stage, that we are here, I've got your back kind of feeling?
I'd hope so. Yeah, we obviously have a lot of fights as well, but but yeah, I would hope so. And I think in a way it makes it a lot easier for them to accept themselves as they are. So from very early age they were drawing their jure, patke, like as they wouldn't just draw a face, it would be fully who they are. And to me that's the key, owning the wholeness of who you are, that this isn't separate. So even at school when they got a face, they would be adding a patka to it themselves, colouring it in and making sure that it's there, that they want their teacher to know, well, this is a representation of me, you know, and being together and seeing each other, seeing their dad and their nana and their mamaji and stuff, representing Sikh identity, I think just spurs them on that, you know, this is who I am. And there hasn't been a point, even after the incidents, where they're like, I don't want to be this anymore. Because again, that's an internal question. And I think that's why we shouldn't question externally what's going on face value. You don't know, because nobody can look inside you and know what your value system is.
That's true. And I always ask this to all the guests who come here, Benji. We want our kids to be in Sikhi, but how much Punjabi are we promoting among them? You know, ਅਸੀਂ ਘਰ ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, so that this language, you know, because with grandparents, you know, it's very unfortunate with the eldest generation, the siyaane the generation passing on to their next journey. The language Punjabi is passing on to its next journey. It's not somehow getting, you know, to our children. So, you know, how much important it is कि ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ language ਆ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖੀਏ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ. So it's kind of interconnected.
Definitely, yeah, I completely agree. You can't separate the two things.
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
And for me, living in an area where there wasn't any, it was just me, and my husband used to work away quite a lot, it was really important for me, and I made sure that all 3 of my children speak Punjabi, and we still continue, and it is difficult because they speak English when they go to school and they are influenced by that language that holds value for them. And I think, again, it has to come from the adults. It has to come from, you've got to have a connection with it yourself. And what you said earlier about our whole scriptures are written in that language, and if we don't understand it, that is also, it's a way then. We don't feel connected to it. And I don't blame anyone for feeling disconnected from the language, because we place so much value on English because of what it means to be integrated into a community. But again, it isn't the wholeness of who you are. You are this other part. It's your roots, it's your lineage, it's your ancestry. And if you really want to understand yourself, you have to understand yourself for yourself.
Yeah.
You need to understand your mother tongue.
Yeah.
It is, I'd say it's so important, so important.
Further down, we don't want to become that community that needs a translation copy with them to read their own scriptures, because we are just 450 years old. Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the Sarup, Maharaj Sarup was compiled 300 years ago by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So, our language is not that old. We're not coming from it was not some archived language. It's very modern, and the concepts. It's such a modern religion. Everybody says that, and we want to be that religion when when our children, they read something, they might not understand the whole thing in the first go when they read it, but then at least if they recognize certain words from Punjabi, they can know the meaning straight away. So. Otherwise, we'll change into a generation who cannot just go without having an English text of the same thing. Yeah. And there are a few questions about you, Benji, which I hope the viewers would like it, but they just go like any book that you love reading.
Oh, wow. Gosh, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. I haven't read a book that I really enjoyed. I've been reading a lot of historical books. Yeah. So
history interests you?
Yeah, history interests me because of its relevance today, and because I've been so focused on, I suppose, the course and the anti-racism. I've been reading a lot of identity-based books. There's a really good book out there. Why Am I Not Talking to White People Anymore About Race by Rennie Edu-Lodge.
Okay.
That's a very good book just to place where identity fits in the UK.
Right.
But I'm also trying to read more women of colour to spread and support those people as well. So there's a lot of women writing a lot of poetry actually and being published, which is really nice to see.
One book I had read was Colour Purple by Alice Walker.
Yes,
yeah, that's a very fantastic book. And any movie you had loved watching?
Oh. No, I don't know anything that I could say just now.
Dundee is too far away from a movie cinema theatre as well.
Oh no, it's just watching a lot of kids' movies because of the children. So yeah, there's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
But
any song that got stuck in your mind from the time you heard it, and it just keeps coming back to you?
Gosh, you put me on the spot now. I'm like, I'm gonna have to come back to these questions.
Yeah,
I know. A movie that I actually really like is The $1 Million Baby. Actually, that's quite an old film, but just the message behind it and stuff. So that's a good movie. I like.
Yes, everybody will go to their Netflix now. A destination you love traveling to?
It sounds quite cheesy, but I would love to see more of India outside of Punjab as well. I haven't travelled that much to India, but I would love to see the other cultures and languages and foods, because it's such a vast country. And again, I think as Sikhs as well, we tend to go to the Punjab and stuff, but I would love to travel a little bit further out and see other aspects and cultures.
And a fear you used to have, but now you have conquered?
I have got a bit of a fear of, I don't think I've conquered it though, it's got worse. Like rides and things. So I don't like, I used to be all right, but now as I'm getting older, I don't like going on big rides or anything like that.
Do you think it comes with being a mother, because you're protective of the kids and then,
No, it's not a conscious thing, but I just don't seem to enjoy that kind of thing, which is a shame because all the boys do. So it has to be their dad to take them on,
What would be the name of your autobiography?
I would just like to claim, just as I've claimed my name, because it's not something I've always used. It's always been a shortened version of me. I would just love to use my own name because it allows me to step into who I am. Yeah,
that's true. The last question, a quote you live by?
A code?
Yeah, it's a mantra of life.
Well, it has to be present.
Yeah.
Just for the moment and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
And don't overthink it. Don't think back. Don't think forth.
Yeah.
Just in that moment.
Yeah. It was really nice speaking to you,
Yes,
Ravi.
thank you so much.
I didn't know where the time passed by.
Yes, it went really quick, yeah.
Any last message to everybody who's watching this, especially young girls, or maybe, you know, anybody who's watching this at the moment?
I just suppose I don't want to take away from anybody's experience because I know life can be challenging and it is difficult. But there is support out there. There are other people walking on similar paths that you are walking on and you may not realise it.
Yeah.
Search for good friends and sisters because they are around and we're going to start changing things for the better. And don't take things lying down. If you see something or feel something isn't right, then you're probably right.
Yeah.
You know, trust your instinct and
gut
look for
feeling.
support.
Yeah. Anybody looking for any kind of advice or guidance can always DM Ravideep Penji on her Instagram handle. Go search right now on Instagram Ravideep Kaur, and you can find Penji putting up a lot of stuff, interesting stuff out there. And as she said, in the month of November, she's also going to launch a course on a lot of stuff which relates to racism, anti-racist activities and stuff. So yes, Penji, hope to see you soon on Seek Channel again with something more interesting. And we wish you all the very best and lots of love to your 3 beautiful kids.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on here.
Thank you, Penji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vaiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji Ki Fateh.